Dermod MacCarthy March 15, 1911, July 12, 1986 MD, MRCP, FRCP was a British-born paediatrician. He was notable for establishing a pediatric unit at Stoke Mandeville Hospital and conducting research into common disturbances in childhood and growth in deprived children. He was most notable, and what made him famous, was his efforts to encourage mothers to be with their children in hospital. Life. MacCarthy was the son of Sir Desmond MacCarthy, who was the foremost literary and dramatic critic of his day. His mother Molly War Cornish was the daughter of the Vice Provost of Eton College. An author in her own right, Cornish wrote A 19th-Century Childhood in 1924. Both were famous in their own right. MacCarthy was educated in Gresham's School and upon finishing his education started his medical training at St Bartholomew's Hospital, where he qualified in 1934. MacCarthy took up a number of positions in medicine, before becoming a ship's doctor on a ship, traveling to the Far East. In 1947, he had married Marie-France Geoffroy de Calme. During World War II, Geoffroy de Calme worked in the French resistance and was awarded the Croix de Guerre for heroism involving combat with the enemy. They had known each other since childhood, but it wasn't until MacCarthy has reached his mid-30s that romance blossomed. Career. With World War II approaching, MacCarthy had already decided to specialize and become a pediatrician, and by the start of the war was working in Great Ormond Street Hospital. Becoming a resident at the beginning of the war and the start of the Blitz, found some of his earliest duties including organizing the evacuation of children from the hospital to outlying and countryside hospitals. In 1942, he joined the Royal Naval Reserve and served as a surgeon, with the rank of lieutenant, a position MacCarthy held until 1946. At the beginning of the National Health Service in 1948, the idea of pediatrics, as a profession, was still very new. Indeed, the word itself was barely known, and hardly in use, outside the medical community in the United Kingdom. During that period, at the end of 1940s, pediatricians during that period were establishing children's units across the country. MacCarthy was selected to establish a series of children's wards, working initially in Aylesbury and then putting in units across the whole of Buckinghamshire, a task that MacCarthy worked on until 1976. It was the 1950s, when MacCarthy's main contribution to pediatrics was made, when a movement arose, to enable parents to visit their children in hospital, when they were convalescing. This movement arose due to a paper written by the pediatrician, James Spence, called The Case of Children in Hospital, where Spence argued that the parent would nurse and feel responsible for the child patient's discovery. Prior to the movement, visiting by parents was usually restricted and sometimes forbidden in certain hospitals. MacCarthy helped facilitate the movement by making an influential film with James Robertson, the second in the series, called Going to Hospital with Mother. The film was filmed in the children's ward of Amersham Hospital. MacCarthy later worked as an advisor to the newly established National Association for the Welfare of Children in Hospital. The paper, written by Spence, and work done by MacCarthy and others, led to the creation of the Platt Report, which ultimately recognized that parents should be allowed to visit whenever they can, and to help as much as possible with the care of the child. In 1974, he became president of the pediatric section of the Royal Society of Medicine, whilst also consulting as pediatrician to the Institute of Child Psychology in London. During 1975, he was elected president of the Confederation of European Societies of Pediatricians.